Yeah, girl, we know the recording is in process.
Thank you, girl.
All right, let's get into it. I'm here with Karen today. We had to hop on and talk about the ridiculousness that is, oh Lord, my microphone's all sorts of turned around. The ridiculousness that is the DEI space. And more specifically, today we are talking about two articles. One it's an article which is really just highlighting a report, and it was the articles from McKinsey, and they're highlighting a report, a diversity, equity, and inclusion report that they did in partnership with, who is this? The World Economic Forum. So this is their Global Parity Alliance Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Lighthouses 2023 Insight Report, January 2023. And, Karen, I love me some, I love some reports and research and articles. I send them to folks all the time. I like to design and build my workshops and my work around that. Mm-hmm. So, but I've gotten to the point now where I always have to do my due diligence and see where these reports are coming from. Now, McKinsey is a valid source, right? We know they're the researchers, right?
Yes.
Deloitte's another one. They put out a lot of research. But I just so happened to want to just check out who contributed to this report. And not a single Black person contributed to this report. How many pages is this? This 61-page report.
Now one.
How? Literally, diversity, equity, and inclusion is an extension of affirmative action, which was a result of people trying to correct, if you will, the lack of diversity, more specifically with Black people in the workplace in the US. That is how it started. Argue with somebody else about that. That's a fact, right? So what are we doing? And then the second article that you just sent me is from the New York Times, and it's an op-ed, go figure. And the title is, "What if diversity trainings are doing more harm than good?" Oh, And that one we've seen regurgitated over and over and over again for like the past month. I can't wrap my head around it. I'm going to hit pause for a second and let you add your thoughts, Karen, because it stopped me. I was like middle of typing an email. I was like,
So here's where I am so thankful that my undergraduate degrees are in anthropology and sociology, because I immediately trigger, when reading things, a few things. First of all, like you said, understanding where something came from. So especially the New York Times article, first off, it is a New York Times opinion piece. So that already sets it up into a milieu of, this is someone's opinion. Mm-hmm. However they source it is one thing or another, but this is someone's opinion. Yep. My second thing is, what is the Times opinion section known for? And we know the Times opinion section tends to run counter to the Times news section when it comes to lens and skew. However, as a DEI professional, I still want to make sure that I'm fully understanding kind of where the background is, what the actual argument is being made, and what their outcome necessarily is. I was still hot after reading all of it, because this is following along in a trend that I am starting to see, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, of the backlash of DEI. And, we can fully expect the backlash of DEI because it happened every time we progress forward in society. Like the backlash after the 1963 Civil Rights Act, the backlash after making sure affirmative action actually moved into law, the fact, after Roe v. Wade, after the DEI efforts in the 90s and the early 2000s, and now there's always been a backlash swing for it, always has been. The only thing different this time is that people saw dollar signs. And so folks who, to use a colloquialism, are new to this and ain't true to this, rolled in and found this as a way of making money. And because this is a way for them to make money, they are diluting the product and they are really capitalizing on the emotionality of it instead of actually doing the work, which causes more issues for those like Adriele and I who are actually committed to doing the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yeah, I mean, a long way around to say this is what happens when you get schemers and grifters.
Yeah. And, you know, like the op-ed I wasn't entirely mad at because it centers around something that I talked about recently, which is the fact that you can't just do this one and done training and then think that, oh my gosh, everybody's going to work in harmony and it's going to be great. And there's going to be tons of diversity and equity and inclusioners, but that's not how it works. Right. And that's what we often see is like people expect these quick hits, this low hanging fruit, if you will, and they think it's going to just transform an entire workplace. And that's not what happens by any stretch of the imagination. And especially if you're presenting some out of the box workshop that hasn't been customized, that hasn't even considered what the actual issues are within a workplace, what's the point? You know, it's a waste of time and money. So I do see that part of it, but it's just like, again, we keep seeing the same types of articles over and over, which are just giving leaders in organization who probably are skimming through an article like this and not really understanding the nuances in there, and deciding like, oh, well, that diversity training is doing more harm than good. So
exactly.
Let's do away with that.
And it also opens the door. Cause like, yes, I think that folks who want to come in and do diversity training where it's all like touchy feely. And I'll even say a lot of diversity training that I see coming in is a lot of, well, I just want to make people feel bad. And it's like, that only has a partial benefit, like realizing where everybody sits in the big scope of how we all deal with and around topics of the DEI is one thing. Right. So yes, it is super important for folks who are of the majority to know where and how they actually fit into this cycle.
Right.
And if that makes you feel bad, you know what? Fine. But the other half of that is, okay, so what are we going to do about it?
Action. Yes.
And for a good DEI professional, you need both.
Yes.
You need to have the emotionality of, hey, there's some really awful things that are going on that are still going on, but here's what you have to do about it.
Yes.
And what I'm seeing in a lot of these kind of grifters, and the reason why articles like that are written, are you have all of these people, and like even your big names, even the ones that are referenced in that article, focus so much on the feeling part about it, but no one wants to do the action part about it, because doing the action part is so much more difficult than even feeling bad. Because feeling bad is one thing. You can get over how bad you feel and be like, well, fine, you know what, then you don't have to like me anyway.
Yeah.
It's the action part that is the part that's really difficult.
Yes.
And most people, frankly, don't want to do the work.
Yes, absolutely. I was kind of related, but unrelated. I was talking to someone earlier about, and people probably gonna be mad that I'm saying this, but there are a lot of DEI practitioners that I have witnessed who I often say not doing the work. And when I say not doing the work, I think people automatically think I'm talking about white DEI practitioners or those that are part of the majority, right? I'm not just talking about them, right? I think it's important to realize that those of us that belong to these historically, systemically marginalized groups also have to do work. And part of that, if you are really trying to be an effective DEI practitioner, is regulating your emotions and your feelings. I've seen people pop off while facilitating workshops and going back and forth with participants and not getting anywhere. And I'm like, you cannot do this work if you are not doing the work on yourself. And that may require you, I think it should require you to go to therapy, for you to constantly be self-reflecting and doing all of these things, because it does not get us anywhere. So I just want to call that out too, because that is just something that I constantly keep seeing, or people going on their rants on social as it relates to them as a person. And yes, that's fine. You are an individual in addition to doing DEI work, but you have to be able to reel it in order to deliver your message and be heard and received.
Exactly. And it really becomes about tailoring your conversation to the room.
Yes.
And understanding what the room is asking for.
Right.
And for some people, you can go in. It's for some people, you can go hard. For other people, you absolutely cannot. You absolutely cannot.
They're going to shut down. They do it all the time. I've had people like, not on my workshops, thankfully, although maybe, probably, but I've seen people leave DEI workshops virtually and in person, just straight walk out. I've actually done it one time. I'm not going to lie, because I was like, no. And I up and walked out and went and got a snack until it was over. So that is very real. But back to this report, because we're going to keep seeing these kinds of articles over and over. But this report, this living document that has been researched, that is 61 pages, and not just an op-ed, but a report rooted in actual data that looked at a bunch of different organizations, many of which we are familiar with. And I'll link the report below. But it is just so incredible to me that even the contributors themselves did not pause for a second to think, hey, you know what? We probably need to diversify the folks that are working on this.
Yeah.
What? I just, oh,
it shocks me, really. It really and truly shocks me that level of not being able to kind of see your nose in front of your face. Like, if for nothing else, just the optics alone. Like, even if you don't have that person truly contribute, just the optics alone of doing a report about diversity and not having diversity in the people who did the report.
Yeah. You know what gagged me, though, is that the first image that you reach of an actual person, the first image in this report is like a one of those corny, like, all the hands in the center and they're all different colors, right? But after that, the first person that you see is a Black woman, a stock image of a Black woman.
Yep.
From Getty Images. And I'm just like, we're tired. And I'm gonna be making a separate video about this soon. But again, in the year of 2023, it also amazes me how many people are like, well, I don't see color, or it would be so much better if we just didn't worry about someone's skin tone. You as an individual are contributing to the problem, because our broader society sees color, and it's not just physically seeing a color. There is so much more to it than just that. And if you don't understand that, you are, again, part of the problem. And it's just to keep telling people that over and over is so frustrating. And I was just on TikTok, and there's a trend where parents are teaching their kids not to see color, quote unquote. And I'm like, okay, so the next round of people that are going to be joining our workforce, this next generation, are going to be dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with now. Because to say you don't see color, you don't see me. You don't care to acknowledge the struggles that people like me face. And we're not looking for problems. We're not, it's not my problem that I go into a workplace and I have to deal with workplace discrimination or microaggressions or macroaggressions.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for that. I want to just go in and do my job. I like my job.
Yep.
So if you don't understand that, there's some work that you need to do. And it just, again, it grinds my gears so much to keep seeing people say that. And I've noticed that with me posting my videos on YouTube, people are in the comments like, well, if we just stop acknowledging color. Yeah, great. You try to get everybody to stop acknowledging color. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. And unpeel all of the various layers that are associated, that we've attached to hierarchy within our society and intersectionalities beyond just color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I know I had to let it out today, because I was in the middle of an email, and I was like, what?
Oh yeah. And just the concept, of, hey, diversity training isn't working. Like, one thing that I'm starting to hear again from clients, and I frankly thought we had gotten over this, was how to make the business case for DEI. And on one hand, and especially coming from, a product background, like, I understand kind of making a business case for new initiative. I get it.
Yep.
And at the same time, I'm also kind of annoyed trying to make a business case for not being a jerk, and for treating people the way you would actually want to be treated. Like, Why do I have to create a business case for not being a jerk?
Yep. And for acknowledging the fact that the systems, the processes that you've built out within your organization do not support all that are working there. And we know this for a fact. And we have enough data and research that tells us that you need diverse groups of people to be more innovative. And that in turn, that is going to drive the money at the end of the day. It is astonishing to keep walking in the same circle, saying the same thing. And yet, you have reports like this one, 60+ page reports. McKinsey's been putting out these reports for years now, Deloitte as well, and plenty of other organizations. So it's really frustrating. It really is.
Yeah. I do want to touch on one last thing real quick.
Yes, please.
I think the thing that actually made me the most upset was like at the end of the Times article, and I know that it was also referenced in a McKinsey article, was focusing on correcting actions and actions even over behaviors, which on the surface sounds great.
Lovely.
The problem is actions and behaviors are both subject to interpretation. So you can easily fall into, well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't intend it that way. That wasn't my intention. And then you fall into an emotionality, a big emotion. If somebody corrects you on your action and you don't agree with it, instead of you taking in those actions, and I know every single DEI professional has had this happen, where you correct someone's behavior and you're like, that behavior is racist, or that action is sexist.
Right.
And you start with that action, and you very specifically say that action and not you.
Exactly. Yes.
It immediately becomes internalized, and what is heard is, you're calling me a racist and now I'm defensive.
Yes.
So how can that be what you're proposing when it is something we are already doing? And then it takes us right back into where we started.
Yep.
So if you're to say, hey, tell people that their actions are sexist or that behavior is racist. So what exactly do you want us to do when that person then says, but I didn't mean it like that, and they start crying or shutting down? What do you do then?
Which happens more often than I care to even talk about. I can't tell you how many people have cried both in person and virtually in my workshops. And it's exhausting to have to explain that to people. It's a lot. It's a lot. And just helping people understand intention versus how something is perceived.
Yeah.
Because you can't control how someone takes in what you've said or what you've done.
Exactly.
Right. Even though your intention may have been one thing, that doesn't mean I received it in that way. And
exactly,
both need to be acknowledged,
Yeah. And that's the part that really just grinds my gears, is that this is also, again, proof that you don't understand what it's like to actually be in the industry itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this op-ed was written by a journalist. I think the person's let's see what they're self-proclaimed, an American journalist, Brooklyn-based, writing a book currently about social science, social justice, and what else here? The replication crisis for Farrar, Straus, and Garreau. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'll have to look that up later. But yeah, this person does not work directly in DEI in the capacity that we do, doing the work that we do, So yeah, we are always open to trying new things. So if you have a suggestion for what Karen just described in terms of when somebody reacts, well, that's not what I meant. Okay, so how do we start changing that if the solution is then to keep calling out behaviors and actions?
Exactly.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No final thoughts, just that diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't something that can be picked up and put down like a coat. It really should, again, be a part of the very fabric of your organization. And the same way that you would want to build a new initiative within your organization, you should treat DEI exactly the same way.
Amen to that. All right. Appreciate you joining me for this little rant. We'll probably do some more of these because, you know, we have stuff like this that pops up in our feed all the time, or people share stuff with us. And we have these little rants on the side, but we don't necessarily put them out. But I think it's important for us to start sharing them, because one thing I'm realizing is a lot of other DEI practitioners that are working in the capacity that we are have the same reactions. And sometimes we just simply need that community to validate, like, whew, this is a lot. This is a lot. So thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please check out the other content, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.